So our keynote speaker, Osuldsen from Snøhetta. She's a partner in the Snøhetta office in Oslo, and is actually a landscape architect for her background. And she will now be talking under the title Architectural Imprints and Cultural Interpretations. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Jenny, and we will hear what she has to say about this topic.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, the sound is on. Thanks for the invitation. And I'm really impressed that you can keep on going for such a long time without a break. I had to sneak out, I'm sorry. And since I don't really, I'm always invisible today. I should have worn my black normal architectural outfit, always black, and I will be in the same with the black box. But congratulations on the Day of Architecture, Alvar Aalto's birthday, Kippis. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about today is 3 different projects of Snøhetta. Let's see if I can get this going. It's a double click like that. Could we turn down the light a little bit? Yeah, that's a good start, so everybody can fall asleep. That's really good. Now, maybe, why doesn't it get on the screen? Johanne, you have to help me. What's going on? Hey, okay, there you go. Let's see. Yes. When I was asked to come and give a lecture from the Snøhetta project in the field of architecture and culture, we have been really lucky to work with a lot of cultural projects in Snøhetta. But of course, then I should talk about the more newer projects, because you heard about the others before, I'm sure. So I thought I have a little glimpse to the back, and then I will talk mainly about 3 different projects that are pretty new, all of them, and they will be chronological. Okay, first just a little bit. This is Snøhetta, the 2 offices. We're about 120 people altogether, 80 people in the Oslo office to the right, and 40 people in downtown Manhattan, 25 Broadway. It's interior architects, landscape architects, and we also have graphic designers doing also brand design. So I think we're 50-50 men and women, and it all started back in '89 with a library in Alexandria. We work what we say transdisciplinary, so everything is really sharing. We're always working team that are deciding what to do. So we don't really have any masters that come by and tell us what to do. It's really the team that decides, and this is how everything is worked in. And one open space in the Oslo office, 1,600 square meters, totally open. And then we love to go to our sacred mountain, Snøhetta, which is not the tallest mountain, but a very mythological mountain. So this was from 2 years ago, climbing Snøhetta, 2,286 meters. It can be really tough and can be really easy, just like one day in an architectural studio. So it all started with a library in Alexandria, kids right out of school, 1989, an open design architectural competition that these really, really young kids right out of school won. And of course that led us to have a lot of international projects that we've been really lucky, and also really been inviting to the Middle East. The second big project is, of course, the National Opera and Ballet in Oslo that we won in 2000. Then we were at the end of finishing the library in Alexandria. We really didn't have much to do. We had to lay off people, and we really didn't think that we would made it again. But actually we won the competition in 2008, that open, which also then has this fantastic 5th facade roof that also is a public space that has a lot of outdoor concerts and really fill up with public people. And then the start in New York was in 2004 because of the 9/11, or the reconstruction of Ground Zero. We were amazingly that we were picked to do one of those projects, the little cultural complex. We thought that there is no way that a non-American office could ever get that commission. I think we tried for 10 years to get a project in the US, and I think many of the times we were there for interviews, we were never famous enough. But then we got this and established an office, and now we're 40 people, actually mainly doing cultural project in the US. Okay, so the 3 projects I'm going to talk about is one in the US, is SF MoMA, the extension in San Francisco, and there are 2 French projects. So this project in San Francisco, California is also, you know, it's very different from the East Coast of the US. And as a lot of the competition in the US, they're actually not in a design commission. It's not like it's a competition. It's really usually based on an interview. And they make a long list and they make a short list, and you can deliver a lot of stuff, and they come and interview you. And in the end, they were picking us to do the commission. And maybe some of you have been there. You see the Maria Botta building from 1995. It's, I would say, late postmodernism. It's really very a strong impact. It's a box, and it doesn't really relate to the public. It's very close to a park. And a couple of years ago, they actually got a very, very large collection of art from the Fisher family. The Fisher family, you maybe, when you've been in the US, you maybe have seen the brand Gap, not Mind the Gap, but just Gap the clothes. And that's owned by the Fisher family, and they have been collecting art for a long time. They will give away their whole collection, and also then, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars to actually make an extension. But the SF MoMA, they are really into that. They don't want it to be the Fisher collection extra wing. It should really be that more people can come and see art. So what is important today is that they also wanted that the main entrance from the Maria Botta building should remain. That's where you're still going to go. You almost double up. 16,000 square meters, not the total, because it's also administration, so it's almost double up inside. And they don't really have that much space to put it in. The telephone building, that's the gray building in the back. That is it's an historical building, has been very important. So we start to look at the city grid. The urban grid in San Francisco is of course very hilly, but still they have a grid on top of it, even if it doesn't really fit. So the building sits in this grid, and you have the major structure of the city grid, and then you have the back alleys. The back alleys is more or less to get rid of waste and people to have shortcuts. So we thought that this double layer of streets would be really important to work with, to have this extension of the building. So we're looking into how to actually do that extension. It should not be another main entrance. It should not compete with the existing one. It has to just fill in that there are more ways to get into the building. So we're looking at the other streets around Minna Street, almost sounds Finnish, Notoma and Harvard Street. And we want to connect all of these new streets to really activate the public space on the ground level. And of course then to have the main entrance together with a new entrance, but still have these new entrances, how to actually solve that and to activate the whole area. And since the footprint was so extremely small, we knew that we had to go up, not in a high rise, but pretty many floors. So how then to try to activate the public space and at grade. So we started to look at how can we actually shape this building that you actually can get some sunlight and get some air all the way down to first floor or at grade. So for the existing situation of the Botta building, it has a very large grand stair when you get in, and it made it really complicated to make the 2 projects into one. So we had to look at that situation. Then maybe really lift our building so it is 2-floor entrance situation coming from the side. So that's why also we started to work with this lifting up to make as much as possible space at ground so the public could be there, so also free to try to get people in and still have the connection from the existing entrance that you can have a flow up in a section. So that's how we work with it. It's really in a section to get the light in more of the different levels. And you know, a lot of art spaces, they don't want to have any daylight at all. So it's just for the public spaces. And from the other section, we have the same situation that we wanted them to get in from second level, but really needed to get them from grade. And you know, the Americans are not so good walkers, so just to get them up one stair was pretty hard to have in a discussion with the client. The more maybe then poetic approach to the project was how to actually fit in between these two very much indeed grounded building that already was there. One historical and one that said that I am actually the Museum for Modern Art. So we were looking at it in how could we actually do this middle ground interesting, because it couldn't cover up and it had to really step aside but still be part of the new composition of these three buildings. So they said that, okay, maybe this is more or less almost like a cloud, or maybe it's something with the weather, the extremely changing weather in San Francisco. So we said that this middle ground, we leave the foreground, the step back of the background, but we have this creation of the new middle ground into the project. And the San Francisco weather is extreme changing in a very short time. It could go 12 to 15 degrees in a couple of hours, and it's raining really hard, and it's foggy, and it's misty, and it has all these changes. And of course the ocean is nearby, so we thought that this middle ground was really important to make a different approach to how that would be. So we were looking into the ripples of the water and the changings of the light. That was really important. So we're making an interpretation of water ripples, and also you can say that water is almost the same as mist or in the sky, so this should be all together in this middle ground. So we did a lot of testing of how we could actually do that for our middle ground projects, to make these changes, these subtle changes, like it would be for the light, and how that will be catching in actually the new volume that, of course, is the facade. So we made a full-scale model, and it's actually made of composite concrete, and it has a specific producer. Everything is really made in the 3D model to say that the ripples are never the same. Actually, all the panels are different. So when they're milled, they're done one by one, and they're all together in a big puzzle. And it's really, really thin, this outer layer, that is actually the middle ground standing there. So this is a one-to-one panel. I think like one of the pieces, they are 10 by 4 meters, and then they're made by 4. So you see it actually has a big depth. So it's really to catch the light and cast a shadow and really be part of this middle ground of the project. So when you cut it to the street, it's like you cut the ripples, and it's all flat sea, and then on the side it creates these different shapes. And also some sort of a middle ground for Harvard Street, which is a secondary entrance, which is one of the entrances to the building, is how it will fit into to the urban grid. And of course a lot of the program inside doesn't really need any daylight, so that's why it's not that many windows that you can see on the new facade. So entering from the secondary entrance from Harvard Street, we lift this middle ground from the ground level, so everything there is just glass, so it's very transparent. You can see directly in 24/7, and actually the first or the ground floor is actually made for a Richard Serra sculpture that will be there for a couple of years before they remove it. And the ground floor is also for free. So you have to enter through in this alley, the back alley, that it creates this new room where it's pretty dramatic, with this tall building on one side and the existing old brick building on the other side. It's really squeezed in because it wasn't really meant to be any space, but we shrink the footprint to make the public get in there. And then you enter from the other side. It's an auditorium looking down to the sculpture, and you also can still see the urban grid and the life outside. So this is still in a transition zone before you actually get into the building. So the major foyer, where you meet from the new stair from the Maria Botta building coming into our new extension building, you always will have a possibility to see indoor, outdoor, as long as you don't go into any of the gallery spaces. So we have made also a green wall in the back that's actually outdoors, that also will then catch some of the sunlight. And actually it's pretty sustainable because it's also use all of the wastewater from the building, and it will be moss and different kinds of epiphytes that would actually grow there. And it's pretty tough in the weather, San Francisco weather. Most of these green walls are not outdoor, they're more indoor, because then you can control them better. And also these narrow spaces that create another way of looking into the urban grid, that you always sort of have to reach up to see the sky, to see some of the weather in the San Francisco context. Getting into also the white box area, it's a multi-purpose room that of course can change from almost anything, and it has a flexible ceiling and a movable podia and the seating, so it can be used for many different things, like an auditorium, but of course mostly for an art space. And also the different galleries, they are white boxes because that's how they want them. And we made a 1-to-1 full scale of that. Was really with the real art to test it in. And this was also something that the client really wanted us to do. So this box was made in a warehouse. It's 960 by 50 meters and 5 meters to the ceiling to really test out. And we've done a lot with the lighting to really reduce the energy use in electricity, and then to actually highlight as much as possible, have a very, very flexible lighting in the white boxes. So that was part of the white scene. So the groundbreakings actually started last summer in 2013. The opening will be in 2016, so it's really totally into construction. It's aiming for LEED Gold, which also is kind of tough. We're in such an area, and we had to demolish the 2 buildings that used to be on the site. It was also a fire station, but really it's working into this new way of an extension building that has its own personality, but still really has the lead to the building that used to be there. So this middle ground is then something new, so hopefully not a sort of art that gets in there, but it will be part of the San Francisco weather. This second project has a little different start, because it's really started back. We have made this little outdoor pavilion, the reindeer pavilion. You maybe have seen some picture of it. It's actually with a view to our fantastic mountain Snøhetta, that we were asked to make this little pavilion. It's on Tværfjellet. How we made that was really, it should be a view to watch the reindeers, because the wild reindeers are not so many of them, and there are 2 herds in Norway, one placed at Dovre, Snøhetta. And so we said that it would be just a frame and a glass window to watch it, and then you could sit indoors and it could be safe, and you have a fireplace, you will get the heat, and you can watch the nature and the animals. And of course the animals can watch the strange animals and sit indoor at the same time, so they can just walk by, because they are really ruling the area here. But the wild reindeers, the strange story about that is that they have figured out that actually from the last ice age, we're talking 10,000 years ago, the reindeer, they were following the ice when it was melting, and they went all the way from southern France. I don't know why they did that, really stupid of them, to just keep on walking after the melting ice all the way up to Dovre in Norway. And they say it's like still the same herd that is actually here standing there. And they are actually to be found at the caves in Lascaux in southern France. That's why they actually figured it out. So when we opened the reindeer pavilion, actually some of the ministers from France came to the opening, because they said that this is part of our same history, and really combining south and north of Europe to one place. And that was actually the start why we were invited to a competition for Lascaux, the new center for actually the International Center for Prehistoric Art. So they asked us, because they have the caves that is there, they wanted to make a new museum, and we were lucky to be invited and actually won the competition. And for the start of this, which is really an amazing story, this is the little town of Lascaux. You saw the, let's see, where is my little pointer here? Just have to So this is the little city, and this is the site, and here is where actually the caves are. In 1942, there were 4 small boys. They were out running in the forest with their dog, and it has been a really, really stormy weather, so a lot of trees has fallen. And suddenly, and they were out with a torch because this was when the daylight was going away, and suddenly the dog was gone, and they could just hear, whoa, 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 whoa. It was like, oh my God, what happened to the dog? And one of the boys saw underneath a tree that was not standing anymore, and he fell into this hole where the dog was. But he luckily had his torch, and it lit the torch, and he saw the caves. So that was first time they actually discovered the caves. This was in 1942, during the Second World War. And of course, it was really almost kept as a secret for a couple of years. And then they opened it right after. And a lot of people went there, and they discovered more and more and more of the caves. And actually, in 1960, they were so destroyed because people, of course, were touching it, and they were doing all kinds of things. And the change in the temperature and everything that was in there, that's been like canned for, they think, 18,000 years, started to get really, really fast destroyed. So you see here the little section going over. So you have the bottom of the valley. This is actually the caves, how it goes into the landscape. So in the 60s, they made a replica. They made like a copy of the cave. And if you have heard somebody say, yes, I've been in the original ones, they probably have not, because they had thought that for a long time that they original ones. So no, they're going to make a new, that was the program for the competition, to make actually a real copy of the existing one. And how we worked with that in the competition, we said we have the landscape, it's really on the foothill, it's where actually the forest is. So we said there will be 3 lines and will be 3 slots in the landscape, because of course it's in the cave, so it needs to be below grade. So the 3 slots, the first one is like vertical, so it's where you can enter, and it's the facade. And then there are 2 more, because to get in and outdoor would be really important to have the experience to go inside a cave and go out to get the daylight and go in again. So all these 3 together, they made our plan. It's an overall plan. So you can see it's the forest, the foothill, and then you have the agriculture area. And really just very much into the agricultural landscape, which is a very much newer history than the caves. We made this patchwork, like we said, in the agriculture area. You can see here is the site, and here is with the building and the project inside it. So it is a parking spot, and then it is an agriculture field. We're also taking care of all the water, and then we make like a new slit in the landscape. We show the geology, and you walk inside to get into the cave. And the notion of feeling that you are going in the agriculture field without redoing too much, it's also that this notion of that the cave is actually exposed to the daylight. And another rendering, how we want it to look, and then to try to cover most of the building up with landscape again, to make it green, to make it part of the landscape like it always have been. It's a pretty complicated program. And it has a lot of the exhibition area, and you can see this area over here, it's actually the replica of the cave. They have picked about 500 square meters of the original paintings and carvings that was done. They think they have been made over thousands of years. They have taken thousands and thousands of pictures of the original caves, and they have an extremely complicated 3D model to make sure that it gets perfect like it used to be, and then how to reshape that in the new way. And also the notion of that it has been constant 12 degrees, that's how they figure it out, because this has been canned for so many years, no air change. To get that feeling inside the cave, they have done a lot of research to make it in the correct way. And also some of how they did the painting, so that's been like researchers for many, many years to really try to find the right way of doing it. So we are making this stroll that you go inside, you go outdoors, you go downwards to get into the cave to get the same feeling. And this construction of the 3D model has also been, of course, the base for our project. And now it's then how it's going to be built. It's like it's casted panels, and it's made of glass fiber with the sand, the local sand in the area. There's so many layers of geology that's shown into the cave, and this is one level that was like perfect for painting. And also the way they have been painting and carving into the original cave is that it has a lot of three-dimensional special effects, where you can, when you walk by a herd of or animals, it looks like they're looking at you and you're entering on the side. So you have all these false perspectives, and it's done amazingly high-tech to be so prehistoric. There's mostly just animals. There's one man that is made in the cave. So, and I think that nobody has lived there, and it must have been for some rituals that they have been using it. Sadly enough, they didn't have any languages at that time, but more of the drawings are almost like comic strips. So they're almost like film strips that are showing different situations. So it's really interesting how it's made in different ways. So this is a section of the building, and you have then, you enter in, you have to get up to go through the slit, and then you go into the caves. And when you're entering, the max of a group can be 30 people. So you go into an elevator that lifts you up, and then you have to start walking into the caves. And everybody has all these equipments, and of course they have sort of a torch, like the boys had when they found it, which is really important to then first go into the existing situation that was in the landscape with the animals, and then this, of course, tell a story about the guys that found it, and the dog, the important dog that actually discovered it the first. And when you enter into the cave, it's really important that you always bring your torch, what you see, because you could get some daylight into the original cave. And then the people with their torches, they can never make more than 5 lux. So it's really dark down there. But if you don't have any other light, 5 lux is more than enough. So you should watch the paintings as they did, because they also found some, not candlelights, but of course they made fire from the fat from animals that it was burning, that they actually also found in there, how it was litted. And when you enter down, it's going from, if it's 30 degrees outdoors, you go down in at 12 degrees. So you really have this sacred feeling from the cave. And then you have the light that will lit up these different rooms that you go into to watch all the animals. And you can never be more than 30 people, so it's really restricted, and the pace you're following, you always have a guide. And of course you have all the information digital today, how it's set in. And also when you are finished with the cave, there are a lot of the exhibition that is not sort of inside the cave, but show how it has been painted, which different methods they've been using, and how they actually have been doing the cave paintings. So it's almost like you're in a maze, but you come into these larger concrete rooms that opens up to the air, so you can orientate yourself again. And also part of the exhibition is also to show how modern artists have been inspired by the cave drawings and cave paintings for all these years, to see how they are connected back to this prehistoric 15 to 18,000 years old painting, and how people have expressed themselves such a long time ago. And then, of course, when you get there by night, you will have this warm light to invite you in to go into the cave, because now everybody wants to go into a cave. The competition was in 2012. The groundbreaking is actually April this year. So we're working really, really fast, because it's an important opening in April 2016. It's not a very large space, about 8,700 square meters in total. So it will be really, really exciting to have the possibility to follow up. and it's not so easy for a Norwegian firm to work in France. There are not so many of us that are French speaking, and the culture is very different. Even if you're not talking to cave people, it's really a different world. I'll just have our little mountain in between, and the next project, I really just have to show that, I'm sorry. Oops, I go back to the third project that is in southeastern France. And let's see here, that was like this, full screen. Because what is actually culture, what is a culture building, and what is the interpretation of going into a site. And the third project, so it seems to be in a little French wave these days, so that's kind of interesting for us to be able to work in France. This was also an invited competition in Annecy. It's like 45 minutes drive from Geneva, so it's really on the foothill of the Alps. Annecy is a pretty small city. I think it's 120 people living there. 120,000, sorry. It's not like a Norwegian little city. It is on the border on two existing communities. It's Annecy and Annecy-le-Vieux. And I'm told that Le Vieux means the old, but it's actually the new. So they have decided together that they will make one expo to work on. And so this is on the border, so actually that they have decided that they're going to meet on the border is pretty exciting, and they wanted to make a project together. When they got into the project, we were really looking into, as we always do, we go into the context and look at we really zoom out and see in the region and into the landscape, and this is really in the foothill of the Alps by the Lake Annecy, which is a natural reserve. And to make an expo in this area, where actually it's a very large park, which is very cultivated compared to the mountain. We thought that this combination of the wild nature to the cultivated one was really important to make that in one symbiosis and one symbol. And since there are two cities together, I want to make it. We said that this actually needs to be a magnet. It needs to be like a mailbox, a place that attracts people, because they need to get more people to come, and they really want to say that this is our new common building. They have some fantastic stone in the area, natural wonders, how it's really carved into the stone, and they make these slits. They also have more canals in the old Annecy, which is very romantic and old middle-aged city. But this is a new part of the city, and they really want to reconnect the older and the new part. And there is a big hotel in the area, which is on the site, Hotel Imperial here. And then actually the border of the two cities is right here. What they said, because of the natural reserve of the Lake Annecy and the park, which is the trees, you can't really touch the trees, they said that the building has to be very low. It's maximum 9 meters above ground. That was very, very strict. The footprint of the site was absolutely too small, that it was hard to fit in all the 10,000 square meters that they wanted. So that's also why we really want to work on it as it was a landscape, that we sort of make another slit in the landscape. So the existing old Annecy with its very romantic canals, we said that that should be linked back in the green linkage park to a new slit, a new canal that is more maybe dramatic, but it's made of the building, and then really make that so it's a landscape that you actually walk over. So maybe you can't see the building at all because you just are on a stroll in the park. So we also said that it's a pretty trafficked road on one side, so that also should really reconnect so it feels green. So it's part of the park and not just backside of the building. Because you're entering in the front, you can't miss the hotel because it's really, really big. And then you should always have the view to the lake and to the mountains on the side. And then we said that actually that red the mailbox should be something that you actually, that could be daring to cross over to actually get to the entrance. We didn't mean that it should be orange, but it should be something extraordinary. So also then we said that the new canal is the slit where you actually also get quite a lot of daylight in. You need some direct light, you need some indirect light to the big expo areas. And also, because this is pretty steep, this could help us actually quite a lot to have the egress from the below grade areas. So we have to dig down 6 meters below grade to fit the program. So you are entering from a plaza, you go very, very gentle slope into the entrance, and you can keep on walking in the park. Or you can enter on top of the building. Yeah, I know we had done that before. We are entering on top of a building, but this is very different. And you have a fantastic view, and you can see to the dramatic new slit in the landscape. And then you can have an outdoor seating, and you really expose that you're part of the landscape, and it's really the landscape that makes the building inside. It happens to be an expo in there. So we're looking into the Alp, the vegetation, the use of wood, to say that this would be another new layer in the park, not as the traditional, almost like English park with very, very large trees. So it's a combination of the newer. And also the expo, they said that they want a restaurant with 800 seats, which is a very, very grand restaurant to feed people at the same time. But we said that they should have the major view and also should be easiest to connect when you're out walking in the park. So when you are below the entrance, you will always see this dramatic view, so you can orientate yourself, because a lot of these areas, it's really almost like being in a black box or a white box. You don't know where you are, but you can always then relate to the slit and the canal and see the fantastic view of the Alps and know where you are. And when you are on top of the two different levels of the landscape, this is the entrance, where it's all wooden decking and more or less a big garden. And on the top, you feel like you are hiking in the mountains, so you're part of more the natural landscape here and more like the cultivated down. And yes, there are some programs inside the building too, it's not just the landscape. So it's really large expo areas, and there are smaller auditoriums, administration on the top, and then you have the very large area for the restaurant. And there is extremely large area for loading, because all this expo needs heavy goods, and that you can load in really, really large tools to use in there. So the landscape and the building follow in the section, and it's rising up, so it's much more than 9 meters at the bottom, but it's really counted from the 9 meter where you go into at grade. And it feels very green when you're passing it, so it's just passing a big green landscape. And then on top you feel that you're part of a big garden festival. And also on the sea has a very large, since 1960 I think, they have an animation film festival that will also be very important. That takes every June or July, so they will use a lot of the big surfaces they have to show the animation films, and other film festivals are interested in coming here, so they can use this as an outdoor area to show films. So to end up that, I think I'll try to show you a little film that was made. This project, we actually delivered schematic design today, so I absolutely should have been at the office instead of being here. But I have got an email today that everything is finished, so they're happy. The groundbreaking is 2016 and will be open in 2018. So this is like the newest of the 3 other projects. Will still take some time. So for the politicians, they wanted to make a film about the projects, so that is made based on our material, and they made a film, so I thought I should show that in the end. Let's see if I can open it. Okay. Sound, maybe. About architecture and culture. Thank you for your attention.
Don't go away.
Okay.
Thank you. And I think we have time for a few questions for Jenny before we go into our final part, which is the launching of the new websites for the Architectural Information Centre. Any questions? Yes?
In the Lascaux caves, is there also some kind of soundscape that is planned so that people can feel that they travel in time?
Yes. Actually, the project is divided in 50-50 with us and the scenography. So it's a lot about the acoustics, a lot about the sound, and it's really, they have done an amazing job to actually make this exhibition area. So they, Casson, I think they're from London. They're making the whole exhibition.
Yes.
So concerning the essay of MoMA, so that was based on interviews, right? So can you recall which were the other offices that were interviewed for the...
I'm sorry. There are, I mean, we are doing so many competitions, and every time we hear the other competitors, you forget it right after. I'm sorry about that. We're doing, we say we win 1 out of 10 of the competitions, so we're really into tons and tons. So I'm sorry. I'm sure it's easy to Google.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Are you like focused on projects outside Norway mostly, or is it like you're keen to make projects also like in the global scale? Like,
yeah, I mean,
it's your main focus point, like doing in global scale, even in Asia, or like, or is it like the States the best place to be, or like I don't know, what is the place you would like to design?
No, that depends about the program and the client, really. And I think, yes, we, from the beginning, it wanted to be international. Snøhetta always wanted to go out, and we have people from 25 different nationalities in the office, even if it was started and based in Oslo. And of course, when we started in New York, it was because of the Ground Zero project. And now the New York office do Americas, so we have now a couple of projects in Mexico. Most of the projects are in US and Canada. In the Oslo office, we're doing the rest of the world. So it really depends where we are invited, or where we can find an interesting program, or are lucky that somebody actually calls us and say if you want to do a project. So we absolutely all the time do projects in Norway too. We're waiting for a project in Finland. Yeah, we're ready for that.
There is one going to be in the South Harbor.
I would be curious to know, do you have a special strategy to how to grow bigger without losing so much of the quality or the spirit of the office.
It's really interesting because they have, actually on Friday, there was a PhD lecture. Aina Landsverk, she has been doing research on Snøhetta for 4 years and made a PhD on how to actually transport and start a new office. And her, she's a social anthropologist, and she was looking into how we talk about, the mystery in architecture and the mystery, the way or the mystic of what we're doing, and how to actually keep that. And it is not easy. We say in the Oslo office, when we won the opera in 2000, we hired quite a few more people. And then we had to hire another floor of the building that we were in. And then we really started to get really unhappy because we couldn't see each other all the time. So we discovered that it was really size matters for the area. So when we moved to the place we are now, and it's 1,600 square meters, the most we've been there is 120. Then you're always in line if you're going to have a coffee, if you're going to the restroom, if you have lunch. But still, we are at the same place. So we think that maybe that's the limitation, actually, that we can be together. In the New York office, there are now 42, I think, and it's no space at all, and they really need to get into a bigger space, and it's a big discussion how many people that should be. They think 60 would be too many to keep on to do the same kind of feeling that you are in the same environment. So it's actually a lot about the space, and of course it's all about the people that work there.
That was a very good question. Any more? Well, I'm interested. You do a lot of international work. So how much do you feel that the Yes, this is better. Okay. So how much do you feel that the Alexandria Library at the beginning of Snøhetta really was decisive in this international orientation, or would it have been international no matter what?
We thought that we would get much more project in the Middle East because of the library in Alexandria, but that took such a long time. The competition was in '89. We didn't get a contract before in '93, so it took almost 4 years. And then it wasn't finished before 2000, 2001, and then people started to travel. And I think since there were really kids right out of school, a lot of people thought, now this is a one-time wonder. They'll never make it again. So actually at the end of the construction process in Alexandria, when we actually won the Oslo Opera, which also was an anonymous competition, that was an amazing feeling because, okay, it was not just a one-time hit. It's actually can happen again. So, and of course in architecture, when you are doing, you have to build to get new work. So to still keep on going and not give up, even if you lose so many competitions as we do, it's really the project that we win that you see work when it's finished and has ownership in the end for the users. That's actually the one that is selling the new projects. So that's really important. So the library in Alexandria, of course, it was so far away from Norway that it was, I mean, for the Norwegian market, it didn't really sort of help anything. It was like too far away. It was like Alibaba, I don't know, flying carpet. But then, of course, when we started to have constructed it, then, of course, the international world started to look at us. And again, in architecture, if you are in the magazine and you get recognized, and it took a long time to get to the US. I mean, I think we really tried for 10 years to get a project there. So, yeah, you have to be patient, which of course not always is so easy. But I think the key is to have to follow the project from A to Z and actually have at the end product you can see that this is actually all the way through.
All right, very good. Thank you, Jenny.